Hey everybody, I hope that you are doing well today. This is Stephen with Junior Achievement of North Florida, here with another Career Speaker Series interview. Today we have Maximos from San Francisco, California. Maximos, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Stephen. Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. So the very first step in this interview is just introducing yourself, name, job, where you're from, any personal information that you would like to share.
Yeah, so my name is Maximus. My last name is Lee. I was originally born in China, and I moved to the U.S. when I was 8. My dad was doing his graduate school work in California, and he ended up getting a job offer as an electrical engineer in Silicon Valley. So then my family came and joined him, and I've been on the West Coast ever since. So I am what is called a talent partner at Google Ventures. This is the part of Google that finds new companies and new ideas, writes a check and puts money into those companies, and then basically helps to make them successful. So I am not on the team that writes the checks. I'm on the team that helps to make the company successful. And my specialty really involves connecting the right people to the right companies at the right time. It's a combination of recruiting, it's people management, and it's a lot of leadership coaching. I also wanted to introduce Shala that you can see behind me.
Yes.
Shala is my housemate's dog, and she likes to hang out with me when I am working.
That's awesome. That's a good coworker you have there.
There we go. Yeah.
The next part of our interview is really kind of entering more into the frame or mindset of high school. So when you were in high school, what was your thinking about what you wanted to do in the future? Did you know that you wanted to enter into the workforce right away, or did you want to go to college? And if you did go to college, what was your major?
Yeah, so I knew when I was in high school that I did not want to be an engineer, or at least an electrical engineer like my dad, because I did not enjoy math. And also because I wanted to work with people, and he didn't work a lot with people at the time. Today, engineering is really different. I think that today there's a lot of collaboration and, social brainstorming that happens in engineering. But, at the time that I was in high school, that wasn't the case. I also knew that I wanted to do a lot more learning, to sort of like really understand, what was the future that I wanted to be part of helping to create. So I did go to college. I went to public university. I went to University of California, Berkeley, which is, about an hour and a half away from my family home, and is now like 15 minutes away from where I live today. I consider my education like the best bang for my buck that I've ever gotten, especially public education, with the help that you get as a resident. But I got to meet so many new people, and I got to, like sit in on any classes that I want, really, for a grade or not for a grade. And I just got exposed to different ways of thinking that helped me think about and not take for granted, right? Things that I'd always thought were true, but then you meet somebody and it's like, oh, they didn't think about it that way. And it sort of makes you think more critically about how you want to live your life and the person that you want to be. So when I was in college, I decided that I wanted to balance sort of something that was a practical major with something that was just like what I found interesting.
Yeah.
So I did biology, and my major is neurobiology. But I also, just for fun, started taking classes in what's called classics, and that's Greek and Roman civilizations. So what Indiana Jones did, like I studied that thing. My professor who influenced me a lot, he basically said classics is about how we understand why people do what they do when they don't have a voice to tell you themselves. So how do you take the clues of, the cookware or the laws or the tombstones and figure out how their society worked or why people made the choices that they did? What they thought was like good behavior and bad behavior, and how that's different from what I think is good behavior and bad behavior today. So when I graduated, essentially it was very expensive to go to med school, which is what I thought I was going to do with my neurobiology degree.
Yeah.
But Google recruited me, and they basically said, we're starting to do some really interesting research about how to bring out the best in people at work. And that sounds like something that actually could be really relevant to the things that you had been learning, which is how do you study people and why they do what they do. So my first job actually in tech and sort of on the career path that I ended up with was Google recruiting me. And then I was saying, like, I don't know anything about recruiting, and I don't know anything about, workplace management or, leadership coaching. I know a lot about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. And my interviewer, who later became my manager, was like, great, that's what we're afraid of. Like, come here and do that work with us. So that's basically how I got into what I did.
Wow. So it sounds like it's what your major is a little bit different than what you are doing now. I mean, you definitely were able to gain a lot of knowledge and context to how it helped you, but it's different than what your job title is.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that I really love this author, Malcolm Gladwell, and he tells stories about why people do what they do. And he's like, look, like, because you can never predict the future, go to a place where, like, you don't feel bad about who you are, and go to a place where you can fail a lot and learn a lot of different things, because you don't know what tools you're going to need for the future that is coming to you. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, the better. And so I felt like I went to college and I was like, well, like, medicine is never going to go out of fashion. Let's learn some things about that.
Yeah.
Right. And this, like, human behavior thing was just really interesting, but that became part of my toolbox. So that, when the world started to change, it's sort of like, oh, ironically, medicine was the one I couldn't afford to do more in depth, but the talking to people, the human aspect of it was something that was really valuable for the future that Google was trying to create.
Yeah, so cool. So it sounds like you've been working for Google Ventures ever since you graduated college, correct?
No, so I started at Google proper. I was a data analyst.
Okay.
And then I went to actually a startup. And so it ended up to be a startup that had been invested in by Google Ventures.
Okay.
And when the company that I was at, I was employee number 9 at this, like, tiny company.
Wow.
And I grew the team to 40 when we were bought out by a much larger company. And when we got bought out, the big company said, like, we have people who are already doing, all the stuff that you do, so we don't really need you. But my boss, my CEO, said, hey, like, I'll write a reference, right? Anywhere that you want to go. I'm so sorry this is happening. You were really important to the company, but this guy, Joe Kraus, who was at Google Ventures, like, wanted to talk to you. So maybe you should talk to them. And the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So quite the transition. And so can you explain to us what you do now? And I guess really before COVID-19 and social distancing, what did your job look like Monday through Friday?
Yep. So as I mentioned, my work is predominantly helping not my company, but companies that we've invested in become successful. So I spend about 60% of my time working with companies that are less than 150 people, and they're trying to figure out, how do they grow their business? How do they, hire the team? How do they not lose the things that they really love about coming to work? 25% of my time, I'm talking to people who are looking for jobs and thinking about new opportunities. I'm kind of saying, like, I don't know anything about what's interested in your world, Max. Like, tell me about what kind of things you're excited about. And they're designers or VPs or finance people, engineers, and they're just sort of like thinking about what's new, what's the next big thing, and they kind of want to have conversations with me about that. And then I think the remaining 15% of the time, I'm helping the investors research new ideas and new companies that want us to invest in them or help them. And that's like a little bit of, analysis and research, and a lot of just talking to people and kind of asking them a question like, are these people arrogant? Are they narrow-minded? Are they going to be able to attract people, who are world-class to help them achieve their dream?
Okay. So go ahead.
The what we call a portfolio, which is the total number of all the companies that we've invested in, it's 427 companies today, all over the U.S., and then there's about 16 companies in Europe. So I spend 2 to 3 weeks every quarter on the East Coast with the companies that are out there.
Wow.
And I spend 2 weeks a year in London, where we have the majority of our European presence.
Wow. So there is a lot of travel, clearly, with your job. Do you guys have a home base in the sense of, like, where you go to the office when you're not traveling?
Yes, so the home base is in Mountain View, and
Okay.
then we also have office locations in Boston and New York.
Okay, got it. So you're obviously, whether you're going to the office, or you're traveling to the East Coast or traveling to Europe, you obviously incorporate a lot of interaction with people and also, of course, travel.
Right,
Now with
right.
COVID-19 and with social distancing, how has your job adapted?
Yeah. I think the lucky thing about my job is I can talk to people from anywhere.
Mm,
And now instead of being, on site at the companies, I'm doing it over Zoom or over video chat. It is challenging sometimes, but it's also just like a privilege because I can get 60% of what I need on the phone or over video, but there's stuff that I like when you're in a room, you can feel the energy of the room. And if something is dysfunctional or if something is, sort of uncomfortable, you can
yeah,
feel it just by being in the room. And also, it's like you can talk to, like, sometimes I'll just talk to the receptionist, right? Do you like working here? Do people treat you with respect?
yeah,
And I don't get that sort of like opportunistic, right, by
right.
accident interaction um, in the same way. So that's something that's different just environmentally. In
Mm,
terms of the responsibilities, I am spending a lot more time doing leadership coaching. I'm doing financial best case, worst case scenario planning with the companies. We're
yeah,
thinking through, right, we're not making money now, you know, do we need to lay people off? And the first thing that we'll say is like, can we help you negotiate your lease? Right? Can we
mm,
help you renegotiate your software licenses? Right?
wow,
Like, what can we do to cut costs so that we can delay, right, the layoffs?
yeah,
If we need to do layoffs, right, at what point and then how many do we need to do? And then how do we actually keep health benefits? How long do we keep them for? Their employees who are on H-1B, how do we keep them on payroll for as long as possible so that
wow,
they have more time to do that transfer? Um, so yeah, that's where I'm doing a lot of conversations about like almost like, hey, let's have feelings Friday and just, like let's just talk about our feelings, right? Let's just be
yeah,
really vulnerable. It's stressful. You don't have a place to work right now. Your desk is a dinner table and your kids are going to, kindergarten and
right.
like, okay, let's just talk about that. We don't know how long this is going to last, but you know, do you need somebody that to do something where you can just put an iPad in front of your kids and keep them occupied for an hour while you go do laundry? We can
Right.
do that. I have a company where they do guitar lessons
Wow.
Tuesdays at 3. And it's just like, oh, because they needed that, those types of things. So employee care is a big part of that. And I'm also doing a fair amount with the companies who still need people to come into the office or the warehouse.
Yeah.
What is the best way for us to keep those employees safe?
Mm,
So, there are two companies where they have warehouses. You come in, they're 6 hour shifts, and they take your temperature at the door. And if your temperature is over 100 degrees, please go home, right? We're still going to pay you for the time that you have off, but you may want to actually get tested. Can we help you get tested, right? Like, how do we actually facilitate keeping those employees safe?
wow. So it sounds like what you do and what your company does is practically help. I mean, before COVID-19 is like how you can make it more efficient, but then now during COVID-19 is like how can we help you survive with actual saying like we can provide you like little like suggestions or we can help you save your entire company. So beneficial. So it seems like you've experienced some positives. And like, can you even expand more of like how do you think that this season that we're in has impacted whether it be your job or personal life in a positive way?
Yeah, I'll sort of tell a longer story about how my work has changed, and also I've seen some of the really lovely things about this
Yeah.
ecosystem. So I have a company, it's called Zipline. They're located in Half Moon Bay, and what Zipline does is they use autonomous flying vehicles, so drones, the stuff that takes pictures. But what they do is they use the drones to deliver blood and medical supplies in
Wow.
Africa. So when I first met them, and there were 37 people in Half Moon Bay, with a robot that was like kind of glitchy. We were trying to figure out how do we actually get a drone from the blood clinic in Rwanda, blood bank, to a doctor. And basically the doctor would text, I need 3 pints of AB blood, we're running low, to the clinic. The phone would send a GPS signal, and then the blood bank would load up, properly sealed and package the blood, and then the drone would find the GPS signal of the mobile phone where the doctor is on the phone. And it would take 8 minutes to deliver blood anywhere in the country. It would not take, it take much longer for a bike messenger to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so before COVID, what I was helping them do is like, sometimes the GPS signal would get lost and then the drone wouldn't know where to go and the blood would get wasted. How do we actually fix that? You don't want to store a bunch of stuff on the drone because that would drain the battery.
Yeah.
So then like, how do we, and like sometimes the GPS signal doesn't tell you if there's other planes flying nearby or buildings that you can crash into. That's just a GPS signal. How does the drone learn how to dodge things, right? Or get out of the way and then recalculate the path back to the original signal, once again, without draining battery power. And so it was like, oh, let's do this, figuring out how do we hire the right people to get this resource in. And we ended up figuring out that, oh, what we do actually is hire people who are really good at video game programming, because they already do flight simulations and they're familiar with some of that. They could train the drones to recognize buildings. And this was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm helping to connect the right people to the right companies, because video game programmers are not typically looking to do healthcare or drones. And the drone company wasn't going to know how to find like video game programmers, but it's sort of like it made all the difference. And it was really important to help, getting that first generation of the product off the air and being able to do all this really life-changing stuff. Because there's been no travel internationally and a lot of restrictions, everybody's been pulled back to the US. And so now the company basically said, well, what other life-changing things can we be using our drones for? And they negotiated a license with the state of North Carolina where they can deliver COVID tests and like specialty medicines to rural areas and farms so that nobody has to go into the ER. And so now we're having this totally different conversation about, okay, so how do we build people who actually understand HIPAA compliance and privacy concerns? And, there's only like 4 types of blood, but there's 7 different kinds of heart care, like, just like diabetes and high blood pressure medicines. And now all of a sudden you need to have like labels and barcode scanners that are all part of your supply chain. And they've never had to do that before. So here's an example of a company who is like, well, we can't do what we used to do, but we still want to be useful. And our mission has not changed. How do we use this technology to save lives? And, so now they've changed in a really significant way the direction. And I get to be helping them do that. I have a company who used to make sneakers for Adidas. It's a 3D printing company. They would make the soles of Adidas sneakers. Nobody's buying sneakers right now because everybody's at home. They decided they would figure out how to make face shields for healthcare workers. So they're using their manufacturing plants to make face shields. And they had to figure out a pattern and a different way of working. And I think if there's one thing that I feel is so palpable, it really is like, oh, this has taught us how connected we really are and that we need each other and we're all in this together. I think that it's also taught us a lot about how we've been unkind to our environment, right? And those are a couple of things that I hope we never let go of, even after some of the crisis aspects are over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really exposed so many people and how we've been forced to adapt. And it's really neat to see companies like what you're saying. It's like, yeah, this isn't really what we are used to, but we have to adapt because we have to help as many people as possible. And so you can really see like human kindness really starting to display itself more than ever before. That's a great story. So cool to hear about that. So the last question is, we're obviously in uncertain times, and with that comes like uncertainty with job, finances. So can you tell these students, why is it so important to focus on your finances, not only during, but also before situations like these we're in?
Yeah. So I believe it is true, money doesn't buy happiness, but money buys you the ability to make choices. And so I think when I look at my friends, right, the people who used to take the bus to work, if you have money, if you have savings, then you can decide whether or not you want to buy a car and drive yourself,
Right.
and that's safer, right? I have a friend who's a couple. They used to run a food truck. Now they can't run a food truck anymore, and they, you know, I think the only way that they were able to do what you were talking about, Stephen, to be creative and adapt, was because they weren't freaking out about how they were going to pay their rent next month. So I think that it's like kind of like the financial aspect of it gives you choice, and that's super important. I would also say that financial planning is about more than just having savings, even though I think having savings is really important. It's also about staying on top of the information and learning that and services that you're entitled to as a consumer.
Yeah.
So, the things like, is it possible to renegotiate your mortgage? Will your bank give you, a couple months off?
Yeah.
So I think like the preparation is both an information as well as a resource preparation.
That's so true. I appreciate how you said that, money doesn't buy you happiness. And so often we think of like savings just to make sure that we just make it, but really saving money also provides you the opportunity to continue helping people, which is so necessary in this day and age when people are like looking for a lifeline, like businesses and people and just in general who do have enough money, they're still capable of saying like, yeah, I'm in a safe spot to where I can actually give my resources, whether it be finances or my time, away because I'm not so hard pressed or stressed about where I'm at financially, even in the midst of a crisis. Maximos, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and even just sharing a little bit more of context of how you got to where you're at today with Google Ventures. So thank you for sharing all that you did, and hope that you stay safe out there.
Thanks, Stephen. You too. And great to meet everybody.
Absolutely. See ya.